All right, today I have Justin Lewandowski on. He just finished up Eastern States a little bit of over a week ago. I wanted to talk with him about his experiences. He's done it now, uh, 2 years in a row. So Justin, if you just want to give a brief introduction to yourself.
Hey, my name's Justin Lewandowski. I live up in upstate New Jersey and been ultra running for a few years now. And Eastern States 100 last year was my first 100, and this year it was my fourth. So still kind of new to the hundreds, but uh, yeah, ultra running is the best.
So since you've done it 2 years in a row, I noticed you knocked a little bit over an hour or maybe close to 2 hours off your time from last year. What would you say the difference would be between the 2 years?
So I think yeah, I took about an hour off, and last year the biggest difference was I paced myself, was very patient in the beginning of the race. I didn't really worry about placement or anything like pace other than what my plan was. And the year before that, I just went out hot. I stayed hot. I got into third place around mile like 11, and I held on to it until mile 80 and just destroyed my knees, IT bands, feet. I I picked up a pacer at mile at Blackwell in 2022 last year, and if I hadn't had that pacer, I don't even think I would have finished. It took me like over 8 hours to go 23 miles. And then this year, I'd done a couple more hundreds since then, a few more actually. And I've learned you can't stress yourself mentally for for a 50K or a 50 miler. You can kind of get away with racing for placement and really pushing the limit because it's over in 10 hours or 6 hours depending on how fast you're going. And with a 100 miler, there's just so many things that can go wrong. There's so much time. There's so many miles that you got to keep going for. And so this year I went out. I said I'm going to just do 15 miles every 3 hours, which for me was pretty conservative, and it was a little bit easy in the beginning, and gradually got harder. And I wanted to kind of hold that pace for 70 to 75 miles, and then just give myself a chance in the last 50K to be able to run, not just feel absolutely smashed and destroyed. And it worked. I mean, I had some issues. My quad started to lock up around mile 68, and then miraculously that just kind of disappeared. It got hard for sure. I threw up a lot around mile 93, and it was one of those moments that you have in a 100-mile race where I was laughing. Some other aid station people were laughing who'd run this race before. Some people were very concerned, but I was just like, all right, I'm out. There's 10 miles left. Who cares? It's the faster you run, the faster I'm done. And it was relatively low stress and fun. The whole day. I really, you know, every mile was kind of enjoyable. I really didn't hit too many low points, thankfully.
So do you think knowing the course from last year helped you prepare a lot more, or is it just one of those things because
Yeah.
it's so hard in general, you really can't prepare?
Yeah, I do a ton of vertical running where I'll do a lot of mountain repeats. I live like 30 minutes from Mount Tammany in the Delaware Water Gap, so I'll go there to do a lot of repeats. Or there's a couple other mountains around here that I like to go to too, and the trails are pretty rocky and similar to those tough parts of Eastern states. So for me, it's a mostly runnable terrain. Um, I just ended up doing Manitou's Revenge this year up in the Catskills, if you've heard of it. And my God, that has got to be the hardest 50-mile race anywhere. Some of the sections are extremely humbling. Um, but in terms of just preparing for it and everything, knowing the course last year helped a lot. I got lost pretty badly in the power line section before the Heiner aid station at 43. Just blew by a turn last year, and I ran like maybe an extra mile down the power lines, and just all of a sudden had that realization that I was like not on course anymore. And this year, I still got lost once, not as badly, but uh, I have some friends that ran it that actually got lost for like 7 miles this year.
Yes.
Um, and they still finished under the cutoff, and it was, I can't imagine, a mile, 2 miles, not a big deal at mile like 40 or 30 in a 100-mile race, but my God, when you get to mile 100, that's a big deal because you're like, I could have been done. This whole thing could have been over. But it helped a lot because I knew what was coming up in terms of the more difficult sections. Like I think the section right before Blackwell, I don't know if you've ever run the race or been on the course, but there's like a long grinding mile and a half climb that you go through, and it feels like you're just walking across this creek bed the whole time with these giant rocks. I've always been there at night, like right after darkness falls. And so last year it was really, really difficult for me. I was by myself, and I left the aid station with another runner and his pacer. And I just kind of said to them as we're climbing up, out of the aid station, I just, started talking to them, asking them if they'd done this before. They said no. Then I was like, okay, like this part kind of sucks, but like if we can all stay together, the three headlamps, it'll help us out a little bit, just because you're looking down and then you're looking up trying to find the flagging and stay on course. So just knowing little things like that and what to expect, really helped me a lot this year.
Yeah, I actually ran it in 2019. That was my first 100 that I completed. And once you get to that, what I call it the night offs, is just things become so much more different, so much more harder because of the course itself is just so hard. By that time, once you're 15 plus hours into the day, probably
Hmm.
10,000 feet plus, your body's just so beat up at that point. It's a whole new ball game.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And you start to, the mind starts to wander a little bit, and it becomes a little bit tougher to stay focused. And yeah, it's having some vert banked on your legs going into it, I think helps a lot. I might do a little bit more vert training than is necessary, but um, that's what's fun about ultras for me, and the training. It's getting to spend hours up in the mountains, just kind of playing and having fun like that, hiking up and hammering the downhill a little bit. Um, that's why I keep doing it, and that's the types of races that I like to look for.
Yeah, I know when I did it, I actually, when I could pick up a pacer, since it was my first one, I picked it up the rest of the night because I just wasn't sure of myself being my first 100. And I noticed, like you said, with the two people, or even with your case, like three, the headlights made such a difference having multiple
Mm,
people. Um, because it was more like a, hey, I found this one, you find the next one type deal, or you know how it is with reflectiveness, because they use those whatever they call them, like the reflective bands at night. So you basically can for people who
it
don't know,
shines.
yeah. So as long as you lift your head up a little bit, you should be able to catch it the next one theoretically pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, and also it helped too because I knew kind of like I didn't rely at all on the blazes last year. I really didn't pay attention to them at all. And then the flagging kind of is they do a really good job of marking the course, but some in some stretches, especially when you're moving slower at night, it feels like it's a lot more distance between the flags, and you feel like you're unsure of yourself that you missed something, or you haven't seen one for a little bit. And this year, just knowing which way the course was going to go, the general direction, I would just pick up the trailblazes, and I'd start following those in between flags, and that definitely helped keep me on course.
Well, I know one thing I've been experimenting with personally, like at World's End and stuff like that, is I've been wearing a headlamp and a waist belt, or like a
Oh,
waist lamp.
okay.
Like I think it was the Ultra Spire, maybe it's the 800 or 600, whatever that number is. It seems like it allows me to like watch my feet and not shadow the rocks as much, but at the same time still catching that reflective
Yeah.
blaze. So I mean that might
Yeah.
be something to look into for next year.
Yeah, I've heard people say like a handheld with a headlamp, or the belt's a really good idea. This way you got your hands free. But just to keep that light on your feet in front of you is definitely just makes it a little bit more fun.
Yeah, I feel like
Maybe a
it doesn't
backup light.
shadow the rocks as much either.
Oh, okay.
So like even if you are looking at the ground and the light's hitting the ground, you could see it. The way it just takes away the shadow just makes a huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, sometimes you can hide a couple things you don't mean to. Yeah. So have you done the Triple Crown?
Yeah, in 2019, I was
What'd
gonna
you
go
think?
for it this year, but I got an hour of sleep the night before Eastern States, and I'm just like, yeah, there's no way I'm gonna run 100 miles in an hour of sleep.
Oh, you could have taken a nap at mile 50 or something.
I regret it now to this day, but hey, it happens.
It was probably a smart idea. Yeah, I don't know about. I never really sleep great before 100. I mean, I've started to get better sleep before them, just with experience, like taking that pressure off of myself. And I think like having that conservative goal to start of whether it's 10 miles in 3 hours or 15, whatever feels comfortable, like a comfortable pace or attainable pace for you, just put that in your mind. Like that's all you really need to focus on for the start of the race. Like there's so many emotions and a lot of energy that could be flowing in, leading up to that start time. Like when I was checking in, I had my bib number on my the back of my running pack, and that's how I did it last year. And my theory with that was just leave it on there. If I want to change, if I want to do like a full outfit change, if I'm wet or something, I don't have to worry about the pins or anything like that. And then they told me at the check-in like, oh no, you have to have it on your front. And I was like, oh okay, like I didn't put up a fight about it, but in my mind I was getting a little bit stressed out over it for a second before I just kind of said like, so what? Just put it on your leg. You're gonna forget about it in 20 minutes after the race starts. You're not gonna think about it for the rest of the day. So I think like definitely not overwhelming yourself with the thought of the entire distance, or the entire time, really helps me take a lot of that pressure off and just kind of focus on the start and, you know, get moving, get started, enjoy some of the little moments out there that you have, because, you do these things for a day or 30 hours or however long it takes, and then it's very hard, and it might feel like a long time, never ending time while you're doing it, but a few days later it's in the past and it's over, and a lot of those little moments don't really matter.
Yeah, how do you get through the night or just like a long race in this, um, like in general, like mentally, like how do you prep or what do you say to yourself in those long hours, like 2 a.m. in the morning? Like how do you keep yourself motivated going through the race?
So it's a little bit different for everyone I've done. So the Eastern States actually is the flattest 100 that I've done. And I did the one I did out in the Teanaway country is it's in Washington State, Central Washington, and it's got like 31,000 feet of vert, and you're in prime Sasquatch country. And then I did another one, the Frigus 30 hour, and that's in like somewhere near the Catskills in New York. I'm not exactly sure where it is, but it was like 15K loops that you just so about 10-mile loops that you just had to keep doing. And for any of these races, like for Eastern States, for instance, this year, um, I was just kind of enjoying it. I always kind of the night running kind of not that it scared me or the thought of running through the night with all sorts of animals that might be out there or whatever. Your mind can wander to so many different places, but I kind of just enjoyed the environment. And in these long races like this, taking a moment to kind of slow down and appreciate, like look around at some of the trees and some of the cool things that you see at night that nobody really would ever get to appreciate. This year I actually got to the top of Blackwell, so that big long climb out of the aid station. It's got to be the biggest climb of the race. I other than maybe the first big one you do. But I got to the top of that, and it was maybe like around, I don't know if it was midnight or what time it was. It might have even been later. And I just shut my headlamp off and sat down, and I was just looking at the stars. And there was this like dense fog that kind of laid down in between the valley that you could see. And it was just such a cool. I took maybe like 2 or 3 minutes just to sit there and like stare at the sky, and it was kind of freaking me out after a little while because the stars were vibrating. It felt like the whole sky was, and it was. I was like, oh my gosh, like I got to start. I got to start moving again because this is going to give me vertigo or something. And then like just kind of paying attention to what's around you, and just kind of having an appreciation for it. I know a lot of people look at it with resistance, but if you can kind of have fun with it and enjoy that part of it, it definitely makes the night go a lot quicker for me. Like I never feel like there's a moment where it's never ending, or I'm really stressed about a noise I hear or anything like that.
He didn't have any like weird encounters with animals or anything like that this year.
Not this year. So this year, the only encounter I really had, there was an owl somewhere around mile 90. That was it was it was making a lot of noise, and I just kept hearing it, and I'm running towards it, and I don't it was just it wasn't really scary, but I was definitely a little more aware that there was it was a very kind of strange experience because you never really hear an owl or see an owl, and so it was just kind of an unknown or a new experience. But last year, I almost stepped on top of a rattlesnake that was like right on the trail, and I just happened to see it right before I got to it, which was lucky, and it like rattled, and I kind of stopped and went around it as best I could, and then about like it felt like 5 minutes later, I ran up on a mama bear and some cubs right on the trail too. And yeah, that all happened within like a half mile of itself, and they all ran off. Thankfully, I didn't have to do anything to scare them off. But um, yeah, this year I was expecting to see more bears. I've been seeing a lot more by me this year than I'm used to. Um, but yeah, nothing. I've never really had like well, actually, no. I had about a month before Eastern States. I was doing a race by me, and I was running down this trail, and behind a tree there was a black bear about, like, I could have touched it. It was just sitting behind the tree, and that, I mean, luckily that's the only time I've really came like too close to anything out there, other than the snake. But yeah, yeah, the owl was cool though. It wasn't a crazy experience.
Do you hear any coyotes by chance? Because I know, like the night before when I was walking in from my car from to the hotel, you could hear them in the different valleys, just like barking at each other.
Maybe, I don't know. Nothing that stuck out. Maybe I might just be ignorant to coyote noises. Or maybe think it's something else. But that would be one uh that would be a little bit stressful, to run into a pack of coyotes, and looking for a tree to try to run up in the middle of a race.
Yeah, thankfully they're more afraid of us usually.
Yeah. I think
Um,
for the most part, it's, when I was first started hiking and venturing into the woods, I had this idea that bears were wandering around like sharks, just waiting to pick people off. And now I see a bear and it's like, oh, let's check this bear out for a couple minutes, as long as it's not too close. But um, yeah, I think for the most part, it's there's not a whole lot to worry about, uh, unless you're out in Wyoming or Montana, or the Pacific Northwest, where you might run into a moose or a grizzly bear, or something like that.
yeah, mine's always a mountain lion.
Uh, they've probably seen you so many times. I don't know where you've done some big racing or anything, but they're if you see one, it wants you to see it. So it's one of the that's what I used to, when I used to go to Colorado or something. I used to like always look up in the trees, to to try and see if I was gonna have to see one. But yeah, from what I understand, those encounters are super rare. There was that, I don't know if you remember, that video was going around on social media. I think the guy was in Utah and he was running, and a mountain lion was like following him and like hissing at him as he was trying to back away from it, because he came on it when it was with its cubs or something.
Yeah, I did see that one.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I
I
think around here though, for most of these races,
yeah, we're
we're
pretty
pretty
safe.
spoiled with wildlife.
So this year there was a couple changes on the course itself. I guess most notably they added that river crossing around like the Tomb Flats aid station.
Hmm.
Um, what did you think of that? I know it to me it sort of gave it like a Western States type feel.
Yeah, yeah. So I liked that a lot. It was awesome. Uh, I was excited for it. I thought it was going to be a really, fun and kind of interesting addition to the race. And running into it about like 2 hours before I got there, that thunderstorm had started. And it was a pretty powerful thunderstorm for a while. And the rain started coming down, and that wasn't a big deal for me. I just kind of kept moving along at the same pace I'd been moving along at all day. It didn't really bother me. But what was in my mind as I was coming up to it was, I wonder if they're gonna let me cross, or if they're gonna make me do the extra 2 miles, because of the thunder. And that's all I was I was really worried about. But it was fun. I mean, I think some people got really cold with it. I didn't. It kind of was refreshing and enjoy. Kind of a pleasant, way to cool down and slow things up in the middle of the race. Um, and it was deep. It was kind of deep at first. I'm about 6 foot 6'1" with shoes on, and it was up over my hips at one point. So I was thinking about some of the shorter runners that were, especially having to cross that at night or something, having a not so pleasant experience with it. But that was I like that that change that they made. It was a nice kind of obstacle and feature that they brought in.
Did you use that rope or did you
Oh
all right.
yeah.
You
Oh
you got
yeah, I had the tether, the rope, and I still kind of fell at one point, just misstepping. And that was a cool moment for me too, coming across. I didn't have a pacer, I didn't have a crew or anything. I had a shirt and a drop bag at one point. If I wanted to change, I could have changed. That was really the only aid I used this year. Um, but crossing that stream, I look over and I see one of my good friends who was he was on his way back from visiting some family in Ohio just while the race, it just happened to coincide with when the race was going on. And so he stopped at that river crossing and he'd been waiting for me. And so I got to see him on the other side of the river as I'm coming across. And that was definitely a really cool kind of moment to have. And seeing a friendly face out, things were fine. I wasn't, beat up or really hurting. I was really excited because it was the last 40 miles. So now we're kind of inching our way closer to the end. But that was a really, I think, a fun feature for the runners and anybody that, was crewing or spectating to just kind of go over there and see everybody coming across the river like that.
yeah, I kind of want to be at that like area next year. I was at aid station 4. I was probably that guy that you came into and we were probably cracking jokes about that like mile long hill. I think it was like 5 miles. The next aid station, 1,300 feet up. I was like, oh, it's nothing. Your grandparents can do it. You can do it type deal. That's what I was trying to tell people at my aid station. But next year I'd like to
Which
go
ace? What mile was that?
25, 26
Okay.
range.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It was the yeah, and you have the douche grade going right up across the creek, right?
I think I you came down like I think a good 1,000 feet, and then you crossed this little creek. Then it was just like a
Yep.
quick little U.
Yep. And then you make a hard left right back onto the trail, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. There was another friend I saw there, Kevin Scott. I don't know if you know him, but I think he was helping out with some of the medical stuff that was going on that day. So he's very good ultra runner, and he ran it last year, and so I saw him there too. That was another nice moment. Seeing a quick friend before getting back out there. Um, yeah, it's always fun. You run in. I had another friend who I ran into at Heiner, and then again at 93 or no 99, the last aid station before the finish line.
yeah,
And I got there, and it was kind of an interesting exchange that I had with, I guess, the medical person that was at that aid station. I guess when I'd thrown up at the previous aid station, they had radioed ahead to like watch me or something, and I was feeling fine. I'd really only eaten popsicles since Skytop, and that's all I could really stomach at that point. And I was feeling good. I was excited to be almost finished with this thing. I just wanted to knock out the last 3.8 or 4 miles. But then they like wanted to take all my vitals, like blood pressure, like they wanted to do this like extensive medical check on me. And I was kind of making a joke of it, when I was there and laughing at my friend, like saying to the medical person, like, you're not doing this for everybody, I hope you're not trying to DNF me, 99 miles into a 103-mile race here. But she was cool about it. Everything was fine. The only thing in hindsight that was frustrating is while I was there getting that done, I came in there in seventh place, and then the first place, woman that was running came in and came right out. So she kind of passed me while that check was going on. And I think she would have ended up passing me anyway, just with the way I was moving. But then I coming out of that aid station, going up that last little climb, I got passed by the second place woman who was working. She was working to catch the first place, so it was kind of cool to see that. That moment where she was just blasting up the last climb with her pacer. But she ended up beating me by less than a minute. So I kind of turned it on that last little ridge line that you hit, and then the descent. I crushed the descent. It was such a satisfying feeling going from last year where it was I was like limping down that last steep section, just destroyed at that point and couldn't really do anything. So it was a nice kind of mental victory to defeat some of those demons from last year, just blasting down that hill. But at the end of the day, it's competitive. It's an ultra marathon, but I like to say this is a team sport. It's all the runners. Yeah, you want to beat as many people as you can, or your friends. You want to run your best time, but at the end of the day, you want to see everyone finish. You don't want to see anybody DNF or get hurt and not be able to finish or get timed out. I want to see as many people cross that finish line that cross the start line, and that's why I say it's kind of the runners versus the trail in every race. So it was just kind of a funny story that I'll have now, almost having to get checked out with 4 miles left.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously they wanted to do it for, health reasons, just to make sure that you could do it because I mean, you had probably 10 hours of bank time. You could have crawled to the finish line if you needed
Oh yeah,
to.
yeah, they weren't going to hard rip the bib off of me or anything like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
would have ran away from if they tried to do that.
but it was like like when you're getting through those later sections, especially after for me like hour 20, 22, 20, you come into aid stations and you're on the moon. You're not on in orbit anymore. And you're talking to people, you might have responses, but I had a smile on my face. I was joking around with my other friend who was in the aid station before all this. So I don't know. I wasn't. I feel like I wasn't too bad. I mean, he said he showed her my Strava afterwards and was like, "That's just how he always looks."
Yeah. So you were saying that you like to cheer people on and stuff like that, see everybody finish. Um, I know the golden hour is what they call it at Eastern States, which is if anybody doesn't know, like during a 100-mile race or anything like that, that's like the last hour to finish the race. Did you actually get to stay this year and watch people?
So I stayed about a mile away from the campsite, and when I got home and kind of peeled my clothes off and taken a shower and slept for a little bit, I was staying with actually three other runners. Two of them DNF'd, and so they were there, but the last one was finishing around maybe like 2:30. I want to say that was his like estimated time. So we were all going back to go see him and see some of the other people finish, and I was hoping to kind of hang out and watch golden hour. But I got there and I sat down in that pavilion by the finish line on the picnic tables, and I don't know if I had a fever or what was going on. I just felt like I was roasting alive, out out there. Like I couldn't, I was so uncomfortable. So I hung out for about 45 minutes. I got to see one of my other good friends that was running the race finish, while I was there. But I just had to, I got home and I was just laying on the couch in the air conditioning for a little bit, trying to reset. Um, but there was one woman that finished like minutes before the cutoff this year, right?
Yeah, I didn't get I know I did look at the times, but I know like every year, like last year, there was maybe, it might have been less than a minute. And then I know in 2019 when I did it, there was like five people, I think from Japan or something like that, that finished within like 5 minutes together of the actual cut. So there's always like that mad rush. Like that's what so makes the golden hour so special is people pushing through and just making it within like minutes and just, everybody cheering them on the finish.
Yeah, I really I wanted to see that for sure. And especially to finish minutes before a cutoff after you've been just working for 30, like almost 30, what is it, a 36-hour cutoff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I always think about that when I'm like after I finish one of these things, there's still people out there going. And it's got to be such a powerful moment, for them, but for anyone just to see, the emotion and the kind of release that they have after they finally make it, for how many hours of, just kind of getting ahead of the cutoffs at every aid station, knowing you gotta really work to just stay in the race, you know. Yeah, that would have been awesome.
Yeah, you'll have to do it next year. I think I didn't get to watch the idiot runner because he was doing like a live feed from the finish line.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if he got like the golden hour or not because I didn't have time yet to watch his like full feed, but he might have it on there. But either way, like any kind of race like that, I love, like even if it's a 5K, I'm one of those guys that stays till like the last person finishes. I always like to watch people like and get their
Yeah.
perspectives like I am with you. It just puts everything in a different view and like makes me appreciate um being able to actually like race in general.
Yeah, I've done that a few races I've done, where I'll hang out I'll finish. Sometimes I'll win. But I'll hang out like all day and, even kind of help break down the start finish area with the race directors, just to see everybody come through. And it's just that's the other fun thing about these races is, is hanging out afterwards. And I would have liked to have hung out a little bit longer at this one, but it was there my hourglass was kind of draining pretty quick there, unfortunately.
Well, when you just did 100 miles, it's kind of hard to just sit around too without crashing and falling asleep and
Yeah.
your body just shutting down in general. Um,
Yeah.
so what do you think the hardest part of the race this year was?
Hmm. Definitely the wet feet, so from doing it, even in a dry year. Last year it was a pretty dry, day, but you cross about 27 little creeks throughout the day and you're getting wet, but you're usually, drying off a little bit in between. But it felt like it rained for 15 hours this year, like it just felt like it never let up. And my feet got so like sensitive and waterlogged. I usually never have really bad foot issues, even in 100. I'm pretty good about, you know kind of putting the anti-chafe stuff all over my toes, and I wear those Ingenie toe socks for these longer races, and that usually, really takes care of everything to the point where it's not too painful. But just having your feet completely soaked for probably 20 hours. By, it just, they felt so soft and sensitive. Like I guess that's what trench foot feels like when it starts to form. Um, and I saw one picture on the Eastern States Instagram story of a guy that put his feet up on it, and he just had like the skin gone. I'm sure you might have seen it,
Yeah,
but it
I
was
seen
just
it. I was like,
gone.
ah,
And that that's what I felt like when I took my socks off. That's exactly the spot that I felt like the skin was just going to rip off, as I took them off. But that and just some of the other chafing that I ended up getting from just the being wet. I carry around a little thing of squirrel's nut butter with me during the race. I keep that right in my pack up in the front so I can just whip it out, and reapply it whenever I start to feel, a little bit of friction starting to build. Um, and I started to get it, all around my, like, where my vest rubs, on my torso and my back, like under my armpits. Like I was really like in places that you never ever experience it. I was getting a lot of it. So I don't really know how you avoid that. Maybe just applying more of the stuff and trying to dry off as you can, but
yeah, I
not a
think
lot
it's just,
of not a lot of options.
I think you just have to keep being on top of it all day long because, once anything gets wet, it starts rubbing away a lot easier and
Mhm.
it's not as effective. So I always try to stay on top of it, even though actually I never really do. I'm kind of lazy in that fact, but yeah.
Yeah.
We, um, so what
Yeah, I try to
view,
set hard mile stops, like whether it's bothering me or not. At mile 40, I'm putting it on. At mile 80, I'm putting it, I try to have those hard times to just put it on. If it's not a problem, great. It won't be a problem.
yeah, for some reason, I just can't get it into my head to reapply that stuff because, well, actually, most of the time I end up forgetting
It's
to
a
bring it
pain.
anyhow.
Oh.
So, do you have any other like cool stories from the day, or did you meet any interesting people at all?
I'm trying to think there in terms of interesting people. I mean, I met some great runners that I ran with a little bit, whether it was in the beginning or the end. You know, just kind of sharing stories, seeing where they come from, what other races they've done, but I mean, really the only really kind of awesome encounter I had was I came down out of the woods for the final time to hit the finish line. And another one of my good friends who had, unfortunately had to drop at mile 40 was sitting there waiting for me to come out of the woods. And, he got like a cool video of me and just kind of chatted with me a little bit while we ran into the finish line. Which was definitely a special little moment that I got to share with him. But man, it was just another incredible experience. I think at any of these races, especially in 100, and then afterwards you kind of connect with people on Strava or social media or wherever. And I have friends that I still kind of stay in touch with today that I've met once, briefly for maybe half an hour, out in the middle of the wilderness somewhere. And, it's if I ran into them, tomorrow, it'd be, it'd be like nothing changed. It'd be like we were lifelong friends. So I think that's just a really cool aspect of these races is everyone kind of has that common understanding or trauma bond where we're like we all survived the sinking of the Titanic, and we're getting back together after years of not seeing each other. Um, so it's always that's one of the things that keeps me you know training, that keeps me really engaged. And because people always say, oh my god, 100 miles, like that doesn't sound good at all. Nothing about that sounds like it's going to be fun. And it's there's so many awesome things to take out of that, outside of the physical aspect of running that distance. Just really what makes the sport so cool.
So do you plan on doing this again next year or maybe sometime in the near future?
So I definitely want to do it again. And I had a really kind of ambitious goal of wanting to break 24 hours this year. And that kind of fell off at a certain point. So I'd love to go back and try to take another shot at getting a sub 24 finish there. Um, if it happens next year, cool. If it's not for a couple more years, definitely something I'd like to do. I don't know if I'd go and target the Triple Crown one year, just because it's just logistically, it kind of takes away from other opportunities that you can go for. But I do think it's a really cool kind of a challenge to get through. And for next year, I don't know if you're aware of the Jigger Johnson 100 up in New
No,
Hampshire. So they just did the 100 mile this last weekend for the first. They just had a 100 mile distance there. It's all up in the White Mountains. I had a couple of friends that did it this year, and some other people that paced. And it's like 106 miles or something. Some of the finishes were 111 miles, and it's 32 to 35,000 feet of climbing. And so that's if I didn't do Eastern States, next year. It's because I'm going to be looking at doing something like that, and it's the weekend after. So
you
it's
can't,
kind
yeah.
of I don't
Some
I
people
did two.
do.
Yeah, I did 200s like about 3 or 4 weeks apart last year. Like I did my first at Eastern States, and then I went out to Washington and did my second one like right after. And that I think that's like about as short of a turnaround time as I'd like to take. Um, but it's tough, right? There's so many races and opportunities out there. It's tough to keep repeating one, year after year. But Eastern States is awesome. That's an easy one to do again for me anyway. Just the energy and you know just the way it's organized and everything. They do a really good job of it. It's for sure the biggest 100 miler, if not, it's one of the biggest races I've ever done.
Yeah, I actually think it's harder probably than Western states, but it
Oh
doesn't get
yeah.
as much notoriety yet. But and like you said, it's hard to do the same race year in year out. And I'm also at that point in my time where I don't want to do the same race yearly because like for this one it gets sold out. So I also want to give the opportunity to somebody else to
Mhm.
do it as well and get the experience. So for this race specifically, any tips that you would give people or like how to train or gear to use or any insider information?
Yeah. Definitely in training, work, run on technical trails, do mountain repeats, get a lot of climbing, in on your legs, so that when get to that, like the 10,000 K mark, or wherever's big for you, you can still kind of stomach those, the remaining vert. Um, on race day, just kind of break it up aid station to aid station. Like I said before, have a really kind of easy plan. Take that stress off of yourself in the beginning and just kind of focus on the first, 2 hours, the first 4 hours of where you want to be, what you want to be feeling. Don't get overwhelmed at any point during the day, and just kind of try to remember to eat, drink plenty of water. One tip that was given to me before I started hundreds was, if you think you're if you think you're running slow, run slower. Because it comes around. That those miles build up, and you get to a point where you're like, man, I really wish I didn't bomb that downhill 20 30 miles ago, when I was feeling fresh. And bring the nut butter, the body glide, the Vaseline, whatever you use, bring some of that with, have it on you the whole day. You don't need a lot of it. And if you need it, you'll be ecstatic that you have it. That can really make the race a lot less fun really quickly. And have you wanting to drop. Um, yeah, and have fun, smile. You signed up, you paid all this money to do this. Try to have fun with it and enjoy all those little moments that you get.
Yeah, I don't know how much more smiling or any smiling that you can do after mile 26 in this course, but I mean, I agree. You try to generally enjoy it as much as you can, especially with the views like later on, like you said, like early
Yeah.
morning with that fog and mist and stuff coming in. It's just really spectacular.
Yeah, it's in all the night sections too. It's how often, do you get to run through the whole night, or most of the night? It's rare. So just try to enjoy it.
All right, I know you have to get back to work. So is there anything else you want to add on or
Um, that's really it. Thanks for bringing me out here. I'm looking forward to the training started up here again. My body's kind of recovered pretty well. Um, after that effort, took a couple days off from running, uh, started easing back into it, I think Wednesday last week. And looking forward to I really don't race too much after October. Usually take the whole winter off and just kind of train, a little bit more consistently. But yeah, got a couple more, maybe 8 more weeks here of fun.
anything big on your calendar still, or this is about it?
So I'm doing I don't do a ton of them, but I'm gonna be doing the Spartan Ultra in Killington, Vermont. It's, I think, mid-September, maybe the 16th. And then I might go up to New Hampshire or Vermont and do this kind of marathon on a mountain with the Endurance Society that they're going to be putting on. So it's like 14,000 feet and 26 miles. Those are the types of races I really enjoy. And then at some point, probably after that in October, I'm going to do the I don't know if you've heard of the Hudson Highlands Hellhole Hell No Hundo.
Yeah, I heard of it, but I haven't done too much research on it.
Okay. Yeah, so the owner of Sasquatch, uh the trail racing company, Kim Levinsky, created this insane course that kind of circumnavigates the Hudson Highlands from Bear Mountain, and you go all the way up to Beacon, cross over to Newburgh, and then come back down on the other side of the river through like Storm King and some of those to get back to Bear Mountain. And it's not a race, you know. I'm not really gonna try to target the FKT, which is like sub 24 hours, but you know, I'm going to try to involve as many friends, you know, that I can to kind of help pace me and support me through certainly like the back half of that course. But just kind of get out there for kind of a nice adventure. You know, in the fall, hopefully some of the leaves will be down. I'll be able to see a few more views, and for me personally, if it's cool, I'm not a humidity or a big heat adapted runner. I do a little bit better in the fall and the winter. So that's it. You know, just a few more big things, you know, that I'm going to be doing, and you know, maybe volunteering, crewing a couple friends, pacing some people, you know, through the fall here. But that's it. It's been a good year.
Yeah, obviously looking at your ultra sign up and stuff like that, you've really crushed some stuff this year. So congratulations on not just what you've done this year, but like Eastern States and things going forward.
Yeah. Thanks, Dean.
All right, guess we'll wrap it up now so you can get back to work. And if you have any other cool stories, just let me know and we'll set up another one sometime.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, thank you.